this is the house and villa urban category. We switched the category of the last one because we thought that the tone of it and the intention of it was really about rural and nature rather than a kind of notion of high density urban. Well, the winners of the urban category, I think locally in Canada they call them 546 architecture. The long number is 5468796, which is the registration number of one of the partners. I call them Numbers Architecture. Please welcome Numbers. Good morning.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Good morning. I'm here to present a house located in Regina, in Canada, in the province of Saskatchewan. I'm here with my partner Johanna, that's sitting there with our family, and it's I would suggest completely opposite environment from what we've seen in the previous house. We're in the prairies. It's very arid, and the greenery you see is a result of hard work of the owners of the house. I'll get into that in a moment. So the house is located in a post-war neighborhood. The street is lined with houses from dating back to 1950s and 60s, some of them in different states of disrepair and repair, and either getting renovated or fully replaced. Our clients purchased the property that's about 40 feet wide, about 100 feet deep, about 13 meters wide, and by about 30 meters deep, facing the street. And you can see it here in color, that the house that they bought was unlivable and what we call a teardown in Canada. It's an interesting setup. The clients were two immigrants from South Africa. One of them is an emergency room doctor, and he is a woodworker, fine woodworker with a son. And one of the first things that they told us when we started working on this house is they've seen enough sun in their life in South Africa, and she with her job, where she couldn't control hours or couldn't control the time that she would have to sleep, was looking for a sort of respite, a refuge from her busy practice. And then early on in the project, we've also discovered a sort of joint aspiration to build responsibly and try to increase density in our relatively suburban towns. Regina is a city of about 250,000 people sprawling in a flat prairie, as flat as a pancake. And so the introduction of a secondary suite was one of the things that we've sort of early on in the project settled on. So we tapped rather quickly into this ability to work with a client who is a fine woodworker, and he's obviously done some custom pieces for the house and allowed us to do things that are slightly out of ordinary. As you approach the house from the sidewalk, walk around the wall, that's where you encounter the front door of the house that then leads you into the living spaces. The intention here, it's an infill project, and the intention was always to try to see how we can use the full breadth, that's not that very wide, at 13 meters, of the property to contribute to the house. So and the way the house opens up and lives. So the house is really a staggered plan of rooms, each one defined by concrete walls where privacy is needed and opening up into side courtyards or into intermediate courtyards. There's one peculiar thing in Canada. Every house needs to be set back about 1 meter from the property line. That's called a setback. It's usually just a wasteland, and this is so we treat it as an opportunity of both extending views and responding to one of the client's needs, which also adds another layer of interest, which is that they are avid gardeners. So that's what they do whenever they're not in their busy practice. What they do is gardening. So this is sort of a spice garden waiting to happen on the side. The full all landscape design in front of the house, in the middle of the house, on the sides of the house is by the clients themselves, who are in their early 60s by now. When you look at the plans of the house, you can see on the middle plan a series of staggered volumes, each one opening to the side yard and the courtyards, and and then on the bottom is the granny suite or secondary suite, access from the stairs from the rear, where there's also parking for it, and then the upper floor is defined by a geometry that actually modulates light one important thing to mention is there are two parts to the upper floor. One is for their son, which is on the far left of your screens, which is a self-contained suite, and then the parents have a portion that's on the right, which is also self-contained suite. So the same staggering of volumes, open and void, happens in section, as you can see here, going down to the courtyard, opening to the side yards, opening to the central courtyard, and so on. This is an image of a sunken courtyard, providing light into the secondary suite. And then upstairs, the serenity is achieved through introducing light tangentially. That does two things. One is it provides privacy to the owners when they're in the space, but also enables them to access roofs and access to the natural light that really washes the space. Conversely, looked at it from outside, the house sort of affords this mysterious look that our clients are really interesting couple. They're opening up to the neighborhood, and the house has raised a lot of curiosity. You'll see it in a sort of its context in a moment, and they'll take people through it who are always really surprised about what they find inside. This just shows the tectonics of the gill-like openings on the second floor that, again, let the light in tangentially to the walls, and it's really a simple timber construction that actually enabled us to do to achieve the geometry itself simply without high expense. And then the client himself actually ended up building all the triangular windows, operable and the ones that are static. The envelope is what we call super insulated, so it's insulated in the cavity with the outboard insulation as well. So in order to increase the house's thermal performance, the climate that we see in Regina is between -40 and +40 Celsius, so it fluctuates from +40 because it's fully continental in the middle of the North American continent to -40 in winters. Here you can see it next to the house that's being renovated in a sort of a piecemeal fashion, and the way these triangular windows work. In the back, there's a garage, and there's a whole story of a Westphalia camper and canoes and so on, which is the reason the carport is elevated the way it is. And the house really sits on the street in a very sort of differential way, especially when the garden in the front has been developed. And it sort of is mysterious to extent that our clients are always in the yard doing something or puttering with the plants and inviting neighbors to actually see what's in there. Thank you.
How have the neighbors reacted?
They're baffled initially, as you can imagine. Our two clients are, I don't want to say they're bullish, but they're very cultured, and they were hoping through the project to prove how you can do high design on a regular lot. They could have afforded a lot outside of the city and build a villa, but they decided to build something that's responsible to the site, wanting to elevate the quality of design in Regina. They don't think highly. We live in Winnipeg, which is about 5 hours out of Regina, and they think of Winnipeg as a big city from a perspective of Regina. They're from Cape Town, so they obviously have lived in large places. But so Regina is really a provincial, parochial place, as conservative as it gets. And so there was a lot of sense of wonder following the completion, and then them being so vivacious and gracious in their daily lives. I think that became almost their well, initially they wanted to elevate the design, but now they're continuing to do that by bringing people into the house and showing them through, where people actually get interested and excited about what it actually is. So that's kind of cool.
Thank you.
So when I looked at the streetscape, it's typical of that part of the world where it's a boundary-less garden, and the next house is kind of opening straight into it. And as you would go down the street, I'm assuming there are more houses that are just opening straight out. Whereas this house has a level of disassociation with the outside completely. So in a way, almost opposite of what the existing context for that community is. So what was the seed of this disassociation which has resulted in a very sculptural product, and congratulations for that. But would you talk a little bit more about that thought process?
You're talking about the front yard
Yeah.
and the way it presents into
Yeah.
the.
Yes.
That's a very interesting question. Generally the original intent of the inner city suburbs has been lost over the years, which was the ability to spend time in your front yard and so on. So we're seeing less and less of that, which certainly does not speak to the reasons we've done what we've done. It was created to create a sense of wonder. We could have done that by actually opening it as well. But the idea of a secret garden was one of the essences of what they were after on a sort of a private level, of a place where she in particular, would come and be able to really, being an emergency physician in Canada, her shifts are 14 hours at a time. So being able to arrive at the place and feel within rather than without. So that's one of the reasons it is what it is. So as we were thinking through that, we knew that they're going to take over the front garden and do their landscape, because that was one of the primary sort of drivers for the house, was this idea of different conditions for different plantings to be developed, and they are in these gardens all the waking hours that they're not working, which is very interesting. It took us about 4 years to get to the photography. That's how long it takes for these gardens to take place and so on. So anyway, so we knew that on a personal level, they're going to be out there, right? But on the other side of their personal life, they required this level of not reclusivity, but sort of repose, and that's where it comes from. So it's actor in a city in a different way than opening up in an urban fashion, but it's acting there through its weirdness, if you wish. In its presence to the street.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, can you go back to the site plan once again?
Sure.
I think
If it allows me.
Yeah.
There's right there, yeah?
of course, one side of the building is empty as well as I see, right? I mean,
Come again?
one
yeah,
side of the
that's
building is empty.
that's-
Will it be always empty, or
That's not their property. So they have struck a deal with the neighbor, call it neighbor, who was supposed to develop at the same time, but they never did. We started on this about 10 years ago. So they've taken over that entire property, and it's a jungle at the moment. Sorry, it's a prairie jungle, not the jungle that we saw in the previous project. For some reason, I can't go back. So I don't know if you see there, but it's basically treed, and they have food in there and fruit and everything that they can actually figure out. So it's amazing how much they can plant in arid climate, thinking that this is, sub-desert. So so that's what's happening there. So it's not their property. They have no control over that.
Yeah, just a technical question, but the ground floor is concrete, exposed concrete. No?
Yep.
And what the white finish is in the top?
So the ground floor, you're right. It's a dual wall with again insulation in between two concrete, one structural, one cladding, if you wish, and that alternates with windows, as you've seen. And the upper floor it really is rooted in the techniques and technologies available in our cities. Basically, what happens in the cities in the prairie, that it was used to be a sea, like a Pannonian Sea. It got dried out in the glacial times. And there's a couple of rivers now that have sedimented, as you can see. So the soils are a disaster. So everything is on deep piles. So the basements are there for almost a requirement, because you have to push the foundation well below the frost lines. And what meets the ground is very critical. So that's why concrete is probably the most, and it's used throughout as a sort of way to meet the ground because of the cold, of the dirt, of the dust, and everything else. So above that is, again, based on the local trades and capabilities. We are sort of communities of immigrants coming from either Lower Germany or Ukraine or Poland, people that know how to build out of wood and stucco. So the outside, the envelope above, or the walls above, are made out of wood, sticks, as you saw it. It was prefabricated, for whatever that's worth. And with a layer of plywood, and then insulation inside the studs, outside in order to smooth, and then a layer of cementitious stucco, and then a layer of very fine stucco on top. And that envelope actually works surprisingly well for this climate, because again, it's dry. There is the pictures that you see there are I think 7 years after the stucco has been installed, and so you can see there's no staining or anything like that, just because the way the nature is. And we have a bunch of buildings that we've done with this in the past, with this kind of finish, and it remains pristine. And air is surprisingly clean because we're open all the way to the North Pole.
Yeah.
So the winds blow from there and then clean everything, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.